Hello, lovelies. I'm making this video on day 4 of the cycle, which is blue self-existing monkey. And the planet for blue monkey is Venus, which is also the same planet for yellow star. So every which way there's a planet to be looked at and different aspects. And I know it's a lot of information to take on in the beginning. So it's just how it is, because if you think about the depth of our journey and the huge, bigger picture that we're in right now around how to change our old patterns and how to heal, to create new human beings who then create from a healed space. It is a very complex process, but the simple way, as I said in the workshop, is to focus on where your buttons are being pushed, because this whole process is based on the emotional evolution. That's what this time is about. And in terms of today, so blue self-existing monkey, so any day 4 is self-existing, which gives us a big hint about the codependency pattern. How can I be free? To use another reference for that, how can I learn how to parent myself as an adult and become transparent? So transparent is another way of looking at that. Transparent, see-through, free-flowing, free of wounding, in other words, free of the old patterning, free of behaving in a way that's still of the old program around codependency. So codependency is when we're still like a child in some way, where we can't be free to stand in our own light, in our own power as a skywalker, channeling directly from the galactic sun. And the galactic sun is the universe, call it whatever you wish, is free of our personal patterning process. It doesn't have any human conditioned pattern or mindset. It's free of that. And when we are free of these old patterns, then we're free to create with the universe fully flowing through us as the Skywalker. And the Skywalker, red Skywalker, is the number 13, is the maverick number, is the shift number. It's Mayan sign number 13. So today we can focus on, for example, some of the tapping that I've been doing over the past few days, because in the yellow cycle, my yellow cycle begins when I was 5 years old. Again, this is the importance of knowing your 13-year cycles so that you can go deeper if you're ready to do that. So 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm aged 8 today. And so when I was 5, that's 1970, 71, 72, 73. So 1973. I've got my mum living with me, so I can ask her as well about things. And if your mum's still around, she's a great person to ask, because the moon story, this is the story, the emotional story that we've inherited. And I'm not saying it's just coming directly from the mother, because again, it's very complex. And the mother holds the dream. The mother is the human being who literally gives birth to us. We come in through her. And so whilst we're in her, we inherit a great deal of her bloodline. And again, something fascinating to Google is to see how much of our father's DNA we inherit. That's very interesting. But also, as women, if we have children, we keep a lot of their father's DNA in our body. So that's another thing to process as well. Um, and again, the more sperm that you allow to come into your body, it does change your DNA on some level in different ways. So, just doing a process of imagining that you're cutting the ties, etc., it's a start, but on a deeper level, on a biological level, it's not going to cut the mustard, because there's far deeper work needs doing to change DNA, rather than simply thinking it so or wishing it so. But intention is really important and powerful. So one way that I've been focusing on is looking back to when I was a child, or even more recently, is what really bugs me about behaviors in my family, with my mum, with my dad, and how is that still showing up today? Because most people aren't grown-ups, they're not mature, they don't realize anything conscious about themselves. And well, again, this is not a blame or a judgment, it just is what it is, and we're all on that process at some point. And seeing how often things come out of our mouths that we've inherited from our mum, for example, often under the heat of the moment, behaviours that come out that surprise us because they're still in there. Sometimes it's difficult to get ourselves in a healthy place because we don't know what we don't know, and we're very much under the influence of these patterns until we become aware. So we might think we're doing a great job, being a people pleaser, says the reforming people pleaser, doing things for other people in a way out of balance way, being a doormat. This being of service can be a very dark program that's in us. And it can be difficult to know that, but on any level, how it makes us feel, how we have good self-esteem, for example, how we are not bothered about what other people think, and that's the optimum, really. It doesn't mean that we don't care. It means that we really understand this process on a deeper level, that people are going to think what they're going to think, regardless of what we say or do, because they are seeing their own belief system in action, regardless of our belief system. And that's how it works, their projection, and this is true for all of us. So in terms of parenting ourselves, how this can be tricky, but how can we be healthy? So how can we be a father to ourselves that is mature, that, the masculine energy, how are we taking care of ourselves in terms of traditional roles, for example, that we are now becoming balanced within us. So, for example, it could be if you grew up in a household where traditionally the man earned the money, which, let's face it, I think most of us did, if we're 40 and above. And it's still very much true now for younger generations, where the men are still the predominant wage earners, or they go out to work. In most cases, it's quite unusual if the man doesn't. And, again, for good reasons in some way as well, that, again, we've been told a lot of propaganda about the feminist movement, which there's some really interesting belief systems around that, and how those projects were developed by people in power to really just exploit women even more, around thinking that they can do it all, be it all, and have everything. And of course, if you have had children and you've been through even a regular, for want of a better word, relationship, it's very, very difficult. It's life-changing becoming a parent. And wow, it's just a whole shift on your body, on what you have to do, how you have to look after these other people, and how it brings all your stuff up around you as a child as well. So all these programs ignite. If you're a single parent, because of, usually it's traumatic in some way, then it can be even harder, because then you've got to do everything. And sometimes that's the space that we need to go into, to recognize, okay, how are we going to live in the future in a healthy way, where we're not wearing ourselves out? Because really there's no need for us to wear ourselves out. The technology is there, the knowledge is there. It's just the patterns that are getting in the way, and the power imbalance and the codependency, and people wanting to prey on other people and make money out of them. So how can we be a healthy masculine individual in balance, who is in the sun sign of Capricorn, generally seen as the father? How have we been experiencing that with the sun in Capricorn? How can we be learning technology, for example, learning how to do jobs in the house, how to do traditional male role situations, and so that we can feel empowered, again, based on your skill set, you know, and your mindset and what your gifts are. We're not all the same. But how can we come into a place of earning money, being independent, being free, and free of any benefits, for example, of you know, what's happened over the last couple of years around universal credit, for example, in the UK coming in, people becoming dependent again because the government shut down their workplace, their self-employment, and how we can thrive because of that. So coming out of that with the learning of, okay, if this happens again, how could I act in a different way where it wouldn't impact on me in the same way? How can I become sustainable? How can I live off the grid, for example? We're getting squeezed, you know, in all directions, but that squeeze is showing us how we can mature. So in terms of the feminine, again, how can we nurture ourselves, take care of ourselves, mother ourselves in a healthy way? What food are we eating? How are we connecting to Mother Earth? Predominantly, again, how are we caring for ourselves rather than wearing ourselves out with other people? And letting go of our need to be needed, letting go of needing to please, and so on and so on. And coming into balance with that. So remember, it's about coming into balance with the giving and receiving, and the energy comes in from the left and goes out through from the right. The left-hand side is the feminine, the right-hand side is the masculine. Being able to receive from the universe. So that came up a lot in the workshop, energy. And if we don't allow ourselves to receive, if we become too independent, if we become hyper-vigilant, which sometimes that's what we've got to do to get through a crisis. We can be extremely hyper-vigilant after trauma, which is why healing is so important. So if you're suffering from anxiety, lack of confidence, worrying, overworking, can't rest, can't be still, got stuff on your mind all the time, this is hypervigilance. This is, so for example, different things that are coming up, ADHD, which there's lots of different variations of that, but basically jumping from thing to thing and not being able to be still, quite often because there's so much going on, too many plates to spin, and it can be a side effect of narcissistic people in the family. It's always because of trauma and avoidance, and not feeling that you can ground and plug in and just do one thing at a time and feel good about that. And again, there's very key things going on in the brain around where the energy gets blocked. And in terms of our society, Alzheimer's, dementia, the body starts to produce proteins, which literally makes other people take care of us. So this is very important indeed, to become self-existing and not go down the rabbit hole of shutting yourself down completely or cutting yourself off or, you know, trying to be all things to all people. Very important to come into ground. And this, of course, is Blue Storm. This is the whole thing of Blue Storm, which is a planetary energy, is to be able to be in our center when everybody else is lost in the storm. We are the firm anchor connected to Mother Earth, and we've got our channel coming through, so we know what to do. We are being guided from our higher self, from the galactic sun, new ways of being, and we're not running around the same old labyrinth doing the same old stuff. So I talked about the moon in terms of how that ties in our emotional story and how we can see how that's showing up because we get triggered. And this is where the spirit comes in through our emotions, because our emotions are real. And although they may come and go, they're real in a sense that I'm not saying that they're truth. I'm saying they're true to us and our programming. They show us where we've got old story, where we've got old trauma, and that's where we need to go to heal it. In terms of the progressed moon, again, I'm going to send you links in this ebook which show you more information. This is new for me too. We're always learning new things. It's limitless with astrology as well, and the Mayan calendar. It just goes deeper and deeper. So the progressed moon is, if you think about the starry sky and you've got your chart now of where all the planets were when you were born. Now, of course, they keep moving, and when they come into the same position as they were when you were born, so like Saturn, for example, is the big one about patriarchy, father structure in our society, which is a patriarchal society, then that's going to trigger up things from when we were born and see how far we've come. Now, these are known as transits. So again, Google this for more depth. There's loads of stuff out there if you want to personally know more about it. And so when those transits come, and this is what I do with the workshops, and this is what I do with a 52-day cycle and every 13 days, is when these transits come up for you. And so the moon, for example, is going to be within a certain number of degrees. Generally around 8 degrees is very strong. If it's the same degree or it's within a couple of degrees, it's super strong, how it's going to be affecting you. And then you can look deeper into that. So you can actually look up that degree and you can see, wow, okay, so this is a time for me to be really focusing on this. This is our whole life map in the starry skies. Now, another way of doing this is with the progressed chart, will show you where things are all the time for you in terms of the planets. So we have our natal moon and then we have our progressed moon. And as I said in the video, it goes about 1 degree per month. It takes about 2.5 years. Whereas the moon, I mean, it's a really fast moving planet. So every 2.5 days, we have a new moon energy that we go through. We go through the 12 different zodiacs. So again, it's like being swiped, if you like, with a barcode. You know, it's like you've got a particular code in you, and it gets, as you go through this laser, which is the universe, it goes bing, you know, and highlights different parts of you to bring to your attention. So it happens anyway, with or without your attention. It's just it becomes more fun if you know what's going on. And you can know more in advance as well. So you can plan, so you can work towards things. If you know, like for me, my Saturn return is coming up and it's going to last for quite a long time. Saturn in Pisces, it's the moon in Pisces the day as I'm making this. And I've just been looking at my chart because the moon is at a degree that's very close to my Saturn right now. And so the more you work with awareness every day, if you've got time, or however much time you've got, So it's hugely important. And just starting this process means your life's going to shift. Your whole way of being and seeing is going to tilt on its axis once you start doing this work. And in particular, it's going to shift even more if you start doing emotional freedom technique and working with this knowledge. Remember, the intellectual knowledge is one thing, but changing your energy and shifting your emotions is a whole different lifestyle. It really is. So I put your progressed moon in, and if you want to know any more about any of this stuff and you want to book for a bigger reading, then please let me know. If you want to take part in the 52-day cycle that's coming up on the 3rd of Feb, please let me know as soon as possible, because I will need to do charts for you for that, and prepare an ebook for you. So you've got it, and we're on day 4 now. So, you know, we've only got till day 13. The planets are all direct now. So this is an amazing time to start putting your dreams out there and taking action. In terms of the moon that's going to be connected again to the 260-day cycle, I pick a Leo time of 11:11, and because that's the Leo meridian time every day from 11 in the morning till 1 p.m. And it's going to be 26 degrees waxing in Cancer, because we're building to a full moon in Leo at 16 degrees on the 5th of February. And so this is going to be very powerful because it's out of bounds. It's called out of bounds. And what does that mean? This is yet another complex thing to add in. When a planet is out of bounds, I'm not going to go into the full how it works on the techie side, but I'm going to put a link in there for you, which is great, and an article for you as well if you're interested. So when we've got any planet out of bounds, then the rule of thumb is when it's within a particular degree, it is under rulership of what is called the king, the sun, and bound by certain rules. Now, when it is not within that parameter, it's out of bounds. So all rules are off, really. With the moon, Cancer is ruled by the moon. So this is going to be even more powerful. Cancer is, of course, the home, the 4th house, and the mother. And it's also the summer solstice. And of course, this 260-day cycle that starts in Aquarius is going to be featuring the summer solstice as well. I haven't worked that out yet, what date that will be. I mean, it's limitless what you can work out on this. So it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. It's going to be very emotional in terms of the moon. I remember Aquarius is about becoming emotionally free through healing and becoming solution focused, not becoming an emotionless zombie because you shut all your feelings down. Aquarius and Leo, as I said in the workshop, they're on the same axis, the 11th and the 5th house. So what do we need to let go of in our childhood so our child can be transparent? Our wounds are gone. We're not on that labyrinth, because remember, we're in a mystery school. We're learning about the mystery of us. And so we come with a script, with a goal. This is all in your chart. This is the Mayan sign and the 13-year cycles. It's all there, you know, when we're ready to open the book and have a look and say, okay, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get off this labyrinth, to meet my challenge, and to come and create this amazing new world through me, which means, you know, we've got to face a lot of stuff, and It's dense, it's intense at this time, and we are perfectly capable of doing that. You know, remember that. But we've got to learn and use these tools in order to do this process. And often this means really taking our mind to task, our ego, our petty tyrant within, which will try and keep us on the straight and narrow and the comfort zone and keep doing that same old stuff, and don't go outside of that comfort zone. Don't risk rocking the boat. Well, the age of Aquarius, that's not going to wash. So there is no guaranteed anything at the moment. And that's the beauty of it. You know, that's the paradox, is we're releasing all these old patterns so that we can literally manifest something else. Now, in terms of the Mayan moon, I'm going to put a link on there as well for that. And I made a document for that a long time ago. So we've got 13 moons that take us through a process. Each one has 28 days. And there's the process. So again, you can just pause this video and use it at any time. So it takes us through a process which is the same as every 13-day cycle, as every 13-year cycle. It takes us through 28 days of magnetic initiation on the 26th of July every year. And of course, that time, we also have the planetary moon, red moon, white wizard, blue storm, and yellow seed in a 13-year cycle. And so these bigger picture cycles, again, I've been watching lots of old dramas around the Second World War, the First World War, over the last month in terms of series. And I always know that this has given me a deeper insight. The 2006 cycle will last, and I worked it out, by the time it's finished in 52 years, I will be 93 if I'm still here on the planet. Who will I be then, and what will I have seen in that time? And if I'm doing transformation all the time, I'm going to have a completely different mindset by the time I get there. And this, again, is good to do for yourself, realizing just how far we've come. Now, in terms of, if you think 52 years before that, that would have been, let me just work it out. That would have been 1954. So I wasn't on the planet then. And so think about that generation that were coming in then, having that 52-year cycle of red moon awakening. Before that, it was 1902. So that's before any of the world wars. Now, imagine those people coming in, and that would have been our great-grandparents. So our great-great-grandparents, because my nan was born in and my mum was born in 1941. So around about 1919, I think my grandmother was born. Yeah, it is. So it's great grandparents, isn't it? Were born around that time, before the world wars, and then just look at what they went through. And again, once we become very aware of psychology and how the mind's affected and how that creates patterns, it's all related to these holographs. It's all related to astrology. If you think about what people went through in Europe, and most of us in this group are from Europe originally. Okay, so if you think about what happened to these people over those periods of time, nobody would be unaffected by what happened with those two world wars and what the human psyche had to understand about loss and just the ripples that went out. So think about people who were actually involved in the front of these wars or who were occupied during these wars or who lost loved ones, who had loved ones come back. I know my great grandmother had 6 boys. Her husband was wounded in the First World War and became an invalid. And she lost one of her sons to TB. And then the whole thing happened again, the Second World War. And they went to war, some of them. I mean, luckily they came back. But she committed suicide. And I mean, imagine what it would take as a person, as a mother, to go through that and have nobody there to help you, no social security. And I can see so many of my patterns, having people renting rooms in my house. She did that. She did laundry. She took in laundry as well as having 6 boys in a 2-bedroomed house, with no inside toilet. And just think about how that shaped people's minds, how it has shaped your family's minds, how these mindsets were created, wherever you're from, wherever your background is. Imagine how it would be to have the war over and then these people come back and the significance of what happened then. And if you look deeper at the patterns that were going on around deeper strategies of people who were making money, so for example in farming, I don't know what you know about any of this, but if you do your research on that, you'll see there was a whole agenda going on at the same time, just like there is now. It's just the next layer of that. So it's, to me, as a student of psychology now for 30 years, and I'm learning more every day about it still, of the pathology of what creates people's mindsets and how they function and how we're all affected by it. And it's just profound. And yet somehow we've managed to hoodwink ourselves that all of this has gone away and that we live a much better life today. It's amazing. It's amazing what denial can do, isn't it? So I hope that you have got lots of insights and you are working with that information that you got. And if you want to know any more information about anything, if you've got questions, I know it's a lot to process, which is why I only do very small groups, and I haven't been doing any of this work for a while because I've had my own big journey going on. But do let me know if you want any assistance, if you have any questions about the big process coming up. And if you'd like to get involved, then please do let me know as soon as possible, so I can create these things for you. Thanks ever so much again for taking part, and lots of luck. Bye for now.